Well, hello and welcome to an online reading group discussion from the Guille-Allès Library. My name's Adam and I'm talking to Jodie.
Hello.
How are you doing, Jodie? You keeping well?
I am, and you, Adam?
Not too bad, yeah, not too bad. We have started to do these kind of online reading groups in the for obvious reasons in the last couple of months. Last time we did it live at the library, but that was before the start of lockdown. But now we are both at home, so we're talking to each other like everyone else in the world. We're talking to each other on Zoom. But yes, this we're just going to have a chat now about our reading group choice for this month. The library reading group normally meets once a month. As I say, for the last couple of months, we've had to take things online for obvious reasons, but one of the ways we're doing that is with these videos. We're keeping the reading group going as best we can, because we're always banging on about the importance of reading for pleasure at the library, but it's probably never been more important than it is right now in terms of supporting our mental health and well-being. So we want to encourage that as much as possible. And this time round at the reading group, we were discussing Life of Pi, which is Yann Martel's philosophical novel that came out back in 2001 and won the Booker Prize the following year. It's sort of generally considered to be a bit of a modern classic. It was always the plan for us to discuss this, but it's actually turned out to be quite timely because some of the themes in the book feel quite relevant, don't they, to our current situation: isolation and loneliness. That might be a bit strong, but isolation and that type of thing. We already had a good discussion about it last night on Zoom with some of our reading group regulars, but for the benefit of those regulars who couldn't take part, as well as everyone else who might be watching this and might be interested, might have read the novel or might be wondering whether they should read the novel, we're just going to have another quick chat about it now. So Jodie, can you start off just by telling us what the book's about?
Yes. So without giving too much away, Life of Pi is the story of Pi Patel. So he's a 16-year-old boy who survives a shipwreck, only to discover that he's sharing his lifeboat with a Bengal tiger. So Pi not only narrates his time on the boat, but it's also his life before, so him growing up in India and living in a zoo his family owned.
Great. So as I mentioned, this came out back in 2001. Had you ever read it before?
No, I hadn't. It's one of those that I'd heard about but been sort of putting off reading. Because it did win the Man Booker Prize, sometimes that puts me off, as sometimes I think they can be a bit hard going. But I was actually, pleasantly surprised with this one, and I whizzed through it.
Okay, so yeah, give us a sense of what you made of it, what you thought about it.
I really enjoyed it actually. I'm really happy I gave it a go. I thought it was beautifully written, and there's lots of hidden meanings throughout. But the main reason that I liked it, I really loved Pi as a character. I thought he was intelligent, he was funny, and that sort of made me really genuinely invested in his well-being. It's just a good survival story.
He is a really good character, isn't he? For anyone who's not read it, yeah, how would you describe him? He says, yeah, intelligent, funny. You spend so much of the book, well, the book is told completely sort of from his perspective. You're sort of inside his head, getting his thoughts about things. He is a really good character, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's just very, very thoughtful, and I loved his sort of thought processes behind everything that he did, especially when he was on the boat and working out what to do about the tiger. So yeah, and just some of the things definitely. There's lots of subtle humor, I think, which I quite enjoyed. But you weren't so much of a fan, were you?
Of the book, well,
Of the book.
of the character, definitely. Yeah, he's a fantastic, very resourceful, as you say.
Mm.
The book, I have slightly mixed feelings. I'd never read it before either, and parts of it I think are brilliant. Like the writing, I think, is amazing. As you say, Pi is a fantastic character, and just the actual language. The descriptions are so vivid, and everything on the boat. Everything he has to do to survive. All the detail that you get of how he manages to, sort of control the tiger, not get killed by the tiger. Everything he has to do, and sort of drawing on that life experience he has from his family's zoo. was great, and the descriptions, I could almost sort of feel myself getting sunburnt, feel the salt prickling on my skin. So yeah, I did really enjoy reading it. Certainly really enjoyed reading those parts. The only reason I have perhaps mixed feelings in the end is because I was a little disappointed with the ending, I have to say. I'll try and do this without spoilers for people who haven't read it, but the ending reveals the idea or the message that's at the heart of the book, that seems to be what, the message that the author is kind of trying to promote, seemingly. So we're presented with two different stories to explain the same events, and in deciding which one to believe, the main characters, Pye's advice and seemingly the author's advice is that we should believe not the one we think more likely to be true, but the one that we find more interesting, more imaginative. We should choose to believe the better story. Now, there's implications there for religion and atheism, which perhaps we don't need to get into, but just on a kind of surface level, I found that whole idea quite irritating. And I also just wonder if it's a bit dated now. So I watched a YouTube interview with Yann Martel, the author, from a few years after the book was released, and he was saying that his whole inspiration for the book, the reason he wanted to write the book, is because he had a increasing feeling, a sense that people are too rational, and his advice was that we should stop trying to make sense, we should stop worrying about what's true, and try and live life a bit more colorfully and a bit with a bit more imagination. And in 2001, when that book came out, that was probably quite a sort of interesting, quite an original idea. But at this point, given the state of the world today, I just wonder if, as I say, if that feels a bit dated, if that's actually kind of, that's actually a bit dangerous. Given two competing stories, we should maybe try and work out which one is true, not which one is more interesting. I sort of feel like establishing the truth of a situation has probably never been more important. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I think that was one of the things that came up definitely last night in the Zoom, and with our culture and fake news, that's should we be striving more for the truth rather than the better story? Yeah, that definitely not as apt as it used to be, perhaps.
Well, because you could certainly argue that the whole concept of fake news, that is what that is, isn't it? It's just believing things because they make a good story. Yeah. And that's caused all kinds of problems. Sort of, if you go along with that, the advice that's seemingly presented in Life of Pi, that maybe leads to these kinds of problems. Is my feeling. So I wonder if that have changed.
I agree. Like, I don't really agree with the message that was in the book, but I think it's definitely an interesting way to end a novel, and I think it stuck with me for a long time afterwards. So whether it was worth it in the context of the novel, who knows?
So we asked some of our reading group regulars if they'd like to share their thoughts with us, that we could share with you on the video. Actually, to be fair, most of them ended up joining in the Zoom chat last night, but we do have one, I think, from a reading group regular called Linda. If you want to share that with us, Jodie.
Yes, I will. So Linda said, "This is a story full of philosophy and science, the natural world and an imaginary one interwoven. For me, it is an extraordinary piece of writing. I don't usually read or want to read novels that cannot possibly be based on true life, but this somehow surpasses all such reservations. Whilst listening, I often reflected on how this could possibly be made into a film. I have no desire to see it."
Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't mention that actually, but it was turned into a film, wasn't it, in 2011, that won some Oscars, including Best Director for Ang Lee. I haven't seen the film, but you were telling me before this that you watched it yesterday.
Yes, I watched it just yesterday for the first time. It was definitely a really good adaptation. It was really sort of true to the novel and visually stunning. I would recommend watching it, even if you don't particularly feel inclined to read the book. Definitely watch the film.
Yeah, because you say it's kind of true to the book. It feels, to me, it seems like it's almost an unfilmable novel because it is so much in his head, and you're just kind of, it's his thoughts, isn't it, all the time? But obviously
they did it really, really well. I was surprised how well they did it.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe I'll have to go away and watch that then. It gives me something to do while we're in lockdown. Okay, well, I think that's it, Jodie. We'll draw a line under it there. Except to say that we hope everyone out there is safe and well and reading lots. And we will bring you another video about another book soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.